Good afternoon and welcome to coverage of round 9 of the MotoGP World Championship in 2025. No, we're not in Malaysia or Mandalika. This is the scorching sunshine of Mugello, nestled into the Tuscan hillside, one of the jewels on the MotoGP calendar. There truly is nowhere else on planet Earth. And I'm sure many of us here in the paddock, and I'm sure plenty of you at home, would rather be this weekend than right here for the Italian Grand Prix. It's Jack Appleyard and Lewis Suddaby, as ever, on this Thursday afternoon to bring you right up to speed with everything that's happening inside the MotoGP paddock. And Lewis, we're not short of stories. There's only one place to start. We will come on to Marc Marquez's brilliance at Aragon last time out to see him extend out that World Championship lead to 32 points. But we stood in front of Pramac Racing 2 weeks ago and said that a deal was ongoing. Talks were ongoing between Pramac and World Superbike champion Toprak Razgatlioglu. Well, now we can officially say that the move that some of us thought would never happen is happening. One of the great what-ifs of MotoGP for the past decade will be answered next year. Toprak Razgatlioglu is MotoGP bound. And I, for one, am very excited to find out what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't want to wish our lives away, but I almost want to get to the Valencia test at the end of the season now. I just want to see Toprak Razgatlioglu on a MotoGP. Many have already felt that he's one of the best riders in the world, and I'm not saying that they're wrong, but we will definitely get the answer over the course of the next few years. Toprak Razgatlioglu signed up by Yamaha. He'll be with this team, Pramac, in 2026, and we've already seen in previous years, but we saw it as recently as last weekend, the star quality that Toprak Razgatlioglu has. Gives us a year to practice how to say his name correctly, if nothing else. But of course, did the triple last weekend at Misano in the World Superbikes, even if he was helped a little bit by his main rival being taken out of the equation on the Sunday in Nicolo Bulega. But he's a two-time world champion, of course, in World Superbikes. He's now the second most successful rider in the history of the World Superbike Championship. Only Jonathan Rea has now won more races in that championship than Toprak, and we cannot wait now to see what he does on a MotoGP bike. He has got genuine star quality, and he's going to be in the right place next year.
Yeah, on the bike, off the bike, he is a real superstar, a magnificent addition to the MotoGP paddock, and I don't think you'll find anybody that isn't excited about that prospect next year. It goes against what a lot of people thought might happen in the fact that, of course, we're just doing a live show at the moment, but anyway, don't worry, as he dives through. Of course, we're
long lap for you,
exactly, that'll be a long lap penalty on Sunday. We were just chatting with Simon Crayford. I'll have to give him a little note to tell who our culprit is. A lot of people thought that he may well make the switch in 2027 when MotoGP teams up with Pirelli, a tyre that he knows so well. But instead, for the first year, he's going to have to acclimatise himself to the Michelin tyres, which are going to be very different to what he's used to in World Superbikes at the moment. I think Alex Rins put it quite brilliantly, and I won't quote him exactly word for word because I'll get into trouble at this time of day, but he said a World Superbike, basically, you can be so aggressive and be able to manhandle the bike around on a World Superbike machine, but with a MotoGP bike, it takes a little bit more finesse. You have to make love to it, is what Alex Rins described the MotoGP bike as needing. So the big question is, and we won't know until Valencia, but do we think that that riding style that he has, he's so famous for, will gel with this MotoGP package? Or do we think he'll have to tweak it ever so slightly and use that obvious talent to adapt to what the MotoGP bike offers?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure Toprak is adaptable. I'm sure he is capable of adapting to whatever challenge is thrown ahead of him. You don't become a world champion at his level without doing that. So I'm sure Toprak will eventually get the hang of it. You might have to potentially keep your expectations under control initially. It is such a jump that Toprak is making that even the best riders in the world will struggle to make that seamlessly. It will take him a little bit of time. Of course, all that knowledge that he has of the Pirellis isn't going to go away. He's still going to have all that experience, all that knowledge when we get into 2027. But the best way to learn how to ride a MotoGP bike is to ride one. So I think the sooner that Toprak gets on that bike, the better. He'll be 29 when next season gets underway. And of course, as we stand here now, Yamaha do have concessions available to them, so he can test to his heart's content before the season gets underway if he wants to. Of course, he'll have the shakedown available, the 2 pre-season tests, but of course, Yamaha with their concessions have got some extra testing available to them. So I'm sure Toprak won't be short of preparation when next year gets underway.
But I think the most shocking thing out of all of this is the fact that it's Yamaha, of all people, that Toprak has signed for.
That ship had sailed, didn't we?
Exactly. 12 months ago, if you'd have told us that Toprak is was going to make the move to MotoGP, our jaws would have hit the floor. If you told us it was with Yamaha, we wouldn't have believed you at all, given the fact that the relationship we felt was irreparable. He's tested the bike before. That didn't go to plan, so it is remarkable, and we'll hear from him soon. But it all comes down to Paolo Pavesio, the new managing director at Yamaha Racing, having his number one target, believing in the talents of Toprak, and clearly moving heaven and earth to get him on board.
Yeah, that test that you mentioned with Toprak was at Aragon a few years ago, and by all accounts it wasn't the most impressive test, but I guess, well, we can maybe answer that question when we hear from our second guest a little bit later on, how much you can truly learn in one day on a MotoGP bike, how much can you really prove yourself in one given day.
But whether he was given the tools.
Yeah, clearly well. Yamaha in their own way had seen enough on that particular day not to pursue Toprak for MotoGP, but clearly there is a relationship that goes back over many years with Paolo Pavesio. He clearly rates Toprak, and why wouldn't you when you see what he's done over previous years? And they clearly feel he is capable of making that adaptation, and it's going to be fascinating. Of course, a world-class talent, such an entertainer on and off the bike. He is going to bring so much to MotoGP, even beyond what he does on the motorcycle next year.
It's a huge risk for Toprak, obviously, becoming a rookie at 29, but as we said, we're going to hear from him. He actually just nipped into the Yamaha box. I hope he's going to make his way towards us in a second. But a huge risk for Paolo Pavesio as well, because he could have played it safe. There are plenty of big talents out of contract, whether he could look into the Moto2 to try and pick up the star of the future. But to bring Toprak across at 29, to it be his first move as a big boss of a MotoGP factory, I mean, there's huge risk attached to it, and I think that just shows how much belief he's got in Toprak as a rider.
And of course, we don't know exactly who yet, but that means that one of Jack Miller or Miguel Oliveira will be out of that Pramac team for next season. They can't both stay now, so clearly they are dispensing with someone who has immense MotoGP experience for next season. That's how much of a vote of confidence they're putting behind Toprak, that they're prepared to move on one of the most experienced riders in this paddock to make way for Toprak Razgatlioglu next season. So, yeah, I think there's clearly... Yamaha have clearly seen, and Paolo Pavesio has clearly seen enough to feel that Toprak can make that adaptation. And of course, with all the running he's going to have, all the mileage he's going to have ahead of next season, and Yamaha, potentially, we don't know who the other components of that lineup are going to be, but we're going to have such a formidable lineup next season with Fabio Quartararo, 2021 MotoGP World Champion, and Toprak Razgatlioglu in their Pramac team, who could potentially go into next season as a three-time World Superbike champion.
Absolutely. It's fascinating anyway. I'm just going to double-check, because we don't have an assistant here, but I could see Paolo waiting. I don't know if he's... Let's walk in this direction, and let's meet Paolo down here, because I think he's going to meet us outside the Yamaha boxes rather than outside the Prima Pramac ones, because we will, of course, touch on, once we've spoken about the big news story in Toprak signing on Yamaha, the work that they did not only at the Aragon test, but then also in Barcelona. They were testing for 2 days there. Augusto Fernandez and Andrea Dovizioso getting the opportunity to try that V4. Jack Miller and Miguel Oliveira were also testing there as well, not on the V4, but trying to work out some of the negative points that the Yamaha has at the moment, notably on low grip circuits. Aragon is one. Barcelona is definitely one as well, so it feels as if it was a fruitful week for Yamaha to try and get this M1 up to a level where they can be competitive everywhere. But this weekend, before we hear from Paolo, it feels as though it's going to be Yamaha back to the level that we saw in Jerez, Le Mans, Silverstone. This circuit offers a lot of grip, it's fast, it's flowing, should suit them a lot more than Aragon did, because that was a real struggle. Yeah,
they feared Aragon was going to be a struggle. Speaking to Fabio Quartararo on the Friday, he didn't expect it to be as much of a struggle as it was, as he found himself in qualifying one. He did rescue the weekend to a certain extent on the Saturday by getting himself into Q2, but of course ultimately left the weekend with no points. Crashed in the Grand Prix on the Sunday at Turn 1. It was only going to be a top 10, if anything, for Quartararo. I think he was already looking ahead to Mugello. As you say, there is so much about this layout that should suit the M1. It's a front-end circuit. That front end on the Yamaha is as good as anything on any motorcycle on the calendar. So you'd expect them to be much closer to the front. And of course, Ducati have won 6 of the last 7 here at Mugello, but the last non-Ducati winner here was Fabio Quartararo on a Yamaha 4 years ago.
Well, let's see if the big man at the top of Yamaha has that same confidence. Paolo, come and join us. Firstly, huge congratulations on capturing the signing of Toprak. It's news that excites everyone here in the paddock, everyone at home, but I'm sure it excites nobody more than you. How excited are you to see Toprak on your MotoGP machine?
To be honest, I'm happy to see the excitement that this has generated. I think it's a good move overall for the paddock, because he's a rider many fans wanted to see in MotoGP. We are happy because he's really motivated to do this. We are happy because we could provide him this opportunity, let's say, after having tried already once. And this is good, I think, also for Superbike, because he's proven that Superbike can be a way to arrive to the top as well.
You mentioned this is the second attempt as such. Just talk us through the process to where we are today, because when that test happened, I don't think there was a real appetite to make the move from Yamaha's side or from Toprak's side. It wasn't a test that went particularly great. So what has changed and what has allowed this move to happen?
Yeah, I have heard a lot about that test. First of all, as you maybe know, Toprak did 2 tests with us before the final sign. The first was just a gift after the world title. The second was really more to understand each other, for us to understand Toprak on a MotoGP machine, for Toprak to understand himself in a bit more structured approach. It was a 2-day test, etc. I really like to say most probably it was not the right moment. I don't think he was as motivated as he is now to do the move. For sure we were not ready as we are now in terms of overall operation, package, performance, and this is something everybody can see. So it's not a secret that was a particular, not easy moment for us. We are still on a journey, as I always say. Yeah? We have not done anything yet, but we are on the way back, and it's for sure it's a better moment, and for sure it was maybe the good moment to do it now.
What does the timeline look like now then for Toprak? Of course, the World Superbike season does finish a lot earlier than the MotoGP season. Is there a possibility to get him on a Yamaha before the Valencia test? Is the Valencia test the earliest opportunity? How soon can you get Toprak on a MotoGP bike?
I would say Valencia test, it's the realistic target, and I have also to say relation with BMW in this transition has been really professional. So Valencia for sure, if we have the possibility to do it before, considering anyhow that obligation and focus of Toprak is on his current obligations. Our focus is on what we are doing now, but of course if we will have the possibility to have him riding the bike before, we will try to make it happen for sure.
And of course, what that means is that you're going to lose some experience from Yamaha next season. We know that either Jack Miller or Miguel Oliveira will be missing now from that Pramac team for next season. In terms of who partners Toprak next season, given that Toprak is going to be new to MotoGP, is the preference to have someone with experience alongside, or does that not really come into the thinking? Is it purely the fastest available ride?
Now, in both cases, I think we will have a lot of experience, and of course, when somebody comes, you need to make the space, and this is not something you want to do, but it's something which is part of the game and part of the sport. We also want to give a bit more time to both riders to have a complete assessment, and then to make a choice and to make a proposal, most probably to one of the two.
We say one of the two. Obviously, Jack is contracted until the end of the year. Miguel, in the announcement, it was 2026. But can we now say in public that there are performance clauses within there that means that Miguel isn't 100% safe to be on the bike in 2026?
Yeah, Miguel has a contract with options. What I can say about that is still his future is a bit in his hand. But what we want to do is to offer the best we can in terms of support to both of them. And then if we are in the position to make a decision, we're going to make our assessment and a decision. We are not in a rush in a way. But we also know that before the summer break, a decision has to be made also for them.
It was a busy week. Not only did you sign Toprak, we had the V4 engine at the Barcelona circuit as well, which by all accounts, that was another successful running of it. I think it's a question everybody at home wants to know. And Fabio and Alex and Jack and Miguel, when are the factory riders going to get their first opportunity to try that? Is there a plan throughout the course of this year, or is that going to be unlikely?
We are planning to have them testing the bike, not racing the bike at a point in the season. It's really depending on how the next step will progress. But as we always said, it's a parallel racing development project. And now the bike was on track, is already public. And as I always say, the more M1 is progressing in performance, the more it makes the internal competition more interesting and challenging. But still, we want to get out of the V4 the best future machine possible. In the same way, we want to be as much as competitive every weekend on the track with current package.
Just last one on Toprak. The press release said for 2026 there was no mention in terms of contract length. Just give us the details.
Yeah, to make it super clear, it's a 2-year fixed deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we look forward to seeing Toprak in 26 and 27. You're a busy man at the moment, Paolo. There's a lot happening at Yamaha, but it's all good news, which I'm sure you're pleased with.
It's okay. We are pushing. We know what we have to do. There is a lot of things coming together. The exercise is to keep everything properly together, do the right things in the right moment. And as I said, we are still chasing a target. We are not there, but we see the path.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time. Good luck this weekend. I'm sure it's going to be a good one, and we'll catch up throughout the course of the weekend as well.
Nice. See you.
There we go. Great to be able to chat, as ever, with Paolo Pavesio. And yeah, confirming, we thought there were indications, a 2-year deal, but from the horse's mouth, 26 with the satellite team. And I imagine if it's a successful one, there's the potential for him to be promoted to the factory team with those new regulations, with those new tyres for 2027.
Yeah, it's one of the things we love about interviewing Paolo Pavesio. You ask him a straight question, he gives you a straight answer. You can't say any fairer than that. And you do wonder if Toprak Razgatlioglu does click quickly with a Yamaha M1, whether the possibility of a Quartararo-Toprak combination will just prove irresistible for them.
Yeah, I mean, it would for me if I was in charge. I mean, wow, what a lineup that could be. But if Yamaha continue to progress, and you don't think that those two are going to be the only riders knocking on his door wanting to be a part of this project, because it's only going in one direction. Right, we're going to hear soon from a Moto2 star, not only leading the World Championship, but as we spoke to you about over the course of the Aragon Grand Prix, was given a gift by the Trackhouse racing concern, Manu Gonzalez, able to get his debut aboard the MotoGP bike. And wow, what a performance, Lewis. He was 2.1 seconds off of Maverick Vinales at the top of the timesheets, having done 61 laps, only 61 ever in his career on a MotoGP bike. 1.1 off Marc Marquez's new lap record from the day before. That was a stunning debut. You've got to give him so much credit, given an opportunity, and he took it with both hands.
Because there was quite a bit, I guess, in some respects, for Manu Gonzalez to lose by doing that test on the Monday. Not just in terms of his current season, of course, leading the Moto2 World Championship, as you mentioned, level on points with Aaron Canet. If he crashes in the test and hurts himself, he could then miss Grand Prix and lose the World Championship lead. But ultimately, it was a case on betting on yourself, wasn't it, for Manu Gonzalez? He backed himself, and you've spoken to him on many a grid this season before Moto2 races. He always backs himself, does Manu Gonzalez. He does not lack self-confidence when he goes into any Grand Prix or test. So he clearly felt he was good enough, and he proved that he was good enough to end that test within 2.1 seconds of what was essentially a new all-time lap record of that Aragon circuit. And we certainly know how hard they were pushing through the weekend. Is incredible, and if he wasn't already on the radar of MotoGP teams before the Aragon weekend, he's certainly very, very bright on it now.
Well, that's the thing for me. I want to give him so much praise, because we understand that the opportunity maybe went the way of Diogo Moreira and he decided not to take it. Manu Gonzalez was given the opportunity, and I was always told, when you're given a chance, say yes and just maximise it. Do whatever you can to make sure that people can't say no in the future. And now he's jumped to the top of the shopping list when it comes to Moto2 riders. I'll be flabbergasted if he's not on the MotoGP grid next year as a result of that performance, because everybody will have sat up and taken note of that, quite rightly as well. And he deserves to be on the grid next year, to be that fast, that quick on, we know, a huge step that it is from Moto2 to MotoGP, a huge gamble with so much to lose, but you feel as though he's only put himself in the front of the shop window now when it comes to MotoGP teams, and you have to give him credit, whether it'll be Trackhouse Racing, who Davide Brivio was adamant over the course of the weekend that Ayagura isn't going to go anywhere, and that seems pretty obvious. He is contracted to Trackhouse rather than Aprilia, so he might not be the man that many think will plug the gap of Jorge Martin is to leave for Honda. Ralph Fernandez is the one that everyone is questioning, but on multiple occasions I was giving Davide the chance to maybe show a little bit of distrust in what the performances of Raul have been this year, but every time he stood firm with him. Or maybe I was hoping that we might have him here at the time to introduce him to Paolo Pavesio, because there is talk in the paddock he could be the man partnering Toprak Razgatlioglu next year.
Well, I think the only mistake he made over the course of that Monday was when he was climbing off the bike. He knocked some of the winglets off the back. He's just coming over to join us now, is Manu Gas. But yeah, to, as I say, bet on yourself in that fashion and put in that kind of performance. What essentially Manu had to try and do was show that he was so good that teams couldn't ignore him, that they had to essentially take him before somebody else takes him. And I think Manu Gonzalez might have done that. As you say, Trackhouse are at pains to point out that this was a gift and nothing more. Whether Manu's performance has changed their mind, whether they feel we have to sign this guy because he's just too good not to, we'll have to wait and see. Of course, he's got a World Championship to win this season as well in Moto2. As mentioned, he's level at the top of the World Championship with Aaron Canet, but certainly MotoGP teams taking him seriously now.
Absolutely. If I was Ralph Fernandez, I'd be checking the fine print in that contract after that Monday test, because I think he may well be at risk if Manu comes across and joins us now. Not only a Moto2 World Championship leader, now a MotoGP rider as well. Manu, we've just been singing your praises. Could that day have gone any better? 2.1 seconds off the all-time lap record, 1.1 seconds off the lap record that Mark did the day before. It was the perfect day, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. All the complete experience was really, really nice. I was just trying to get in confident everything, because it was many things together, and I was just trying to maintain the calm, go out on track and enjoy riding.
Did that lap time, or the lap times, because it wasn't a singular one, even impress you? Did you think you'd be able to be that quick, that fast?
I was not really expecting any lap times. I was just going out on track and trying to improve my riding style, but really I didn't need to change many things. But of course the confidence with the tires was the most difficult thing. How to use the front tire in the entry of the corner was a bit difficult, but I was just going out and trying to push a bit more each lap, riding alone. For sure, if I see someone in front, I would have improved even more. But we were not caring about the lap time. We were just trying to get in confidence and yeah, have a good experience.
Tell us how the opportunity came about through the weekend in Aragon. Of course, we know that Ayagura has been injured, so was unable to ride the bike. But at what point were you approached, and how quickly did you say yes?
No, they didn't even ask me. My manager already told me Monday we have to ride the bike. They don't ask. For sure, I was going to say yes, but yeah, they told me in Sunday morning. I was confident for the race. I was trying to think 100% just in the race for the Moto2, because it was going to be difficult for me to start from the back. But then when the race finished, I was already trying to see what to do better, how to adapt to the team for the bike. And yeah, it was really calm and trying to enjoy everything.
And how did you view the opportunity? Did you see it as an opportunity to showcase your talents to the MotoGP teams? And do you think you've done that? And does that perhaps change your outlook for next year?
Yeah, it's difficult, for sure. When the MotoGP teams look for a Moto2 rider, they just see the results they do in Moto2. So this is a good opportunity for the teams and for the Moto2 riders to show how they are, how they work in the team inside, and the MotoGP teams can see what the riders can do, not just for the Moto2 results, because this can change even if you are better than the rider in front. So yeah, it was good, but it was not a pressure for me, because I had many important moments in my career where I had to show the potential, and here I was just trying to enjoy, because this is the best thing you can do to be better, to be faster, and it came well.
Testing the Aprilia, do you think in the long run that could be a positive or a negative? Because looking at where the contracts finish, there's no room at Aprilia. Do you think the other factories will like the fact that you have experience on a different bike to be able to maybe bring some knowledge of only 60 laps, I know? Or do you think that maybe they might not like the fact that you've had the chance to try a different bike and maybe learn some habits already?
I don't know. I don't want to think about this. No, I want to think about the Moto2 races, try to fight for the championship. For sure, the MotoGP teams will do their work. They will see what to do. There are not many places, but this is not in my hands. I am only this year thinking about what I can do, what is in my hands, that is fighting for the wins, doing our best with the bike I have, and then the things will come along. How
much will that test now act as motivation for the rest of the year, knowing that if the results can continue to come, then you have that prize waiting almost at the end of the season.
Yeah, you never know. So I just have to go on track and give my 100%. That is what I was doing always. Not if I see now that I can have the opportunity. Even before in Thailand, for sure I was not thinking 0% for MotoGP, and I won the race. No, so now I will try to do the same. Try to forget everything, and when I put the helmet, go full gas and try to take the win. Is the only thing I can do.
Well, Manu, you did a brilliant job in Aragon weekend to battle back after a tough Saturday on Sunday, and an even better job on Monday. I think you deserve to be on the MotoGP grid next year, but we'll have to wait and see. Good luck for the rest of the year.
Thank you so much. Let's see, no?
Absolutely, absolutely. Great to chat with Manu Gonzalez, who of course leading the Moto2 World Championship. He now needs to refocus that mind. Let's touch on MotoGP then. We've got about 5 minutes of the show left before we hand over to the press conference. 32 points, the gap now. A dominant weekend from Marc Marquez, but the big story really coming out of Aragon was the turnaround in performance on Sunday by Pecco Bagnaia. We now know the change from the 340mm front brake disc to the 355, he felt was the big key to allowing him to have that extra feel on the front end, to maybe just adjust the balance of the bike ever so slightly and see him up there fighting at the front for the first time in what's been a long time. I guess the big question now is, has the work at the test allowed him to come here, a very different circuit, and continue this momentum that he's found?
Yeah, it's quite a simple and fundamental change that they've made to the bike, but it clearly made a difference. And I think in many respects, it made a difference in Pecco's mind. He could actually trust the front end. He could feel where the limit was, whereas in previous Grand Prix this year, he couldn't. He ultimately didn't trust the front end of the bike and was losing it on many occasions. Silverstone was where that was most graphically demonstrated to us. So let's hope that Pecco Bagnaia has found that level again, because if he'd have been offered after his arguably his best weekend of the season, even for allowing the fact that he won in Austin, perhaps his best Sunday of the season in Aragon. If you'd have then offered him a back-to-back following that, he'd have said, give me a bit of Mugello and Assen, please, because they're his two best circuits on the calendar. I don't think we're going beyond and into hyperbole there by saying these are Pecco Bagnaia's two best circuits on the calendar, here at Mugello and Assen next weekend. So if there was ever a fillip and if there was ever a time that he would have wanted it, it would have been ahead of this doubleheader. Unbeaten here in the last 3 years across Grand Prix and sprints, and dominated in Assen last year. So Pecco Bagnaia arriving with his confidence boosted at the perfect time.
I don't think it's hyperbole or tabloid to say that Pecco Bagnaia's season, it comes down to these next week, 10 days, because if he can't be fast here, he can't be fast anywhere.
Yeah, and I think he also knows that he needs to put that Ducati on pole position and lead at the start of Grand Prix. Of course, we'll really get an idea on Saturday how much he's found, because the sprints have really shown up his shortcomings so far this season. And generally, when he finds himself in traffic, he just can't go anywhere. He cannot overtake anyone because he can't trust the front end enough to make overtakes. So hopefully Pecco Bagnaia, from his point of view, doesn't have to do that. But if he does, we'll get a really good idea here. Of course, if you don't have trust in the front end when you're braking from 360 Ks down to around about 80 Ks into San Donato at turn 1, then you really are struggling. So yeah, Pecco Bagnaia will answer some more questions this weekend, and if he comes up with the answers, then we've got a genuine head-to-head building potentially this weekend with his brother, with his Chase teammate Marc Marquez.
We've touched on Yamaha and Fabio Quartararo. We expect him to be up there challenging. Pedro Acosta and KTM, it was a much better weekend in Aragon. Not that Pedro Acosta's face told that story. He still, despite finishing fourth, despite pushing for the podium for the majority of the race, was pretty miffed at the end of it all.
The Costa track, though, this. Of course, Moto2, he won on both previous attempts here, and he was on the sprint podium here last season. So Pedro Acosta does have form around Mugello. KTM will be hoping that what we saw in Aragon was a genuine sign of progress rather than sort of a perfect storm of conditions, low grip surface, hot temperatures. Yamaha and Aprilia struggling by their own standards, which potentially took them out of the battle and promoted KTM up the order. We'll find out this weekend whether it was the first or the second. I'm still not convinced which of the two it is, because I think if Yamaha and Aprilia are much stronger here this weekend, KTM might be the ones that potentially fall by the wayside.
Just finally and quickly, that final rider coming up in the press conference, Marco Bezzecchi. Is it fair to say his weekend comes down to Saturday morning? If he can figure that out, then he's going to be contending for the podium.
Friday afternoon and Saturday morning. If you can get into the top 10 on Friday in practice, that will do a lot of the hard work. Of course, by not doing that in Aragon, he found himself in Q1, and that qualifying one session could not have got any worse for Marco Bezzecchi. The crash at the start of the session, he had done problems on the second bike, which left him 20th on the grid. We saw what kind of performance he had, because he came through to 8th on both occasions. If Bezzecchi can just get himself into the top 10 on the grid, he and seeing that Aprilia generally go forwards.
Absolutely. And when it comes to Honda, you'd imagine that Johan Zarco, Joan Mir, of course, had his best weekend for a very long time in Aragon. Let's hope that that's a springboard for him to be up there competing for the top 6 once again. It looks as though it's going to be a very competitive weekend. I personally hope that for the first time this year, we've got Marc Marquez at full strength versus Pecco Bagnaia at full strength here at Mugello. What a showdown that would be. Certainly billed as it being the head-to-head we've all been waiting for this weekend. Let's get the thoughts of the World Championship leader Marc Marquez and his teammate Pecco Bagnaia from Aprilia's Marco Bezzecchi and KTM's Pedro Acosta, those 4 kicking off the Brembo Italian Grand Prix here at the magnificent Mugello.